This is the Thayer Podcast for Monday, June 12th, 2023. Target stores lost $9 billion in less than a week over LGBTQ clothes for kiddies. Anheuser-Busch lost over $15 billion because light beer drinkers were revolted by a supposed transgender influencer's claim that Budweiser endorsed the LGBTQ community. Revolt, if that's what you want to call it, began to spread. Big corporate names were suddenly backing away from their tacit, if not open, support of fairies and rainbows. Many in corporate America had bought into the propaganda that members of the World Economic Forum and supporters of the DEI and woke ideologies were pushing across our country. I recall back in the 60s when patriotism fell under attack and when individualism was all the rage. The Vietnam War caused huge chasms between dear friends and alienated huge numbers of young people who were terrified of being drafted into the military. At that time, the United States had committed its support of the effort to keep the people of North Vietnam free from communism. Few Americans understand even now that the Vietnam conflict began in Laos when the people of that southeastern country revolted against the French, who had retained control of their government's affairs after World War II. The Plan de Jar, that's French for the Plain of Jars, is an archaeological landscape in Laos consisting of thousands of stone jars scattered around the upland valleys and the lower foothills of the country's central plain. The area was in turmoil over the French occupation from after the war through the late 40s and 50s until 1964. The official line is that in the spring of 1964, Laotian communists, better known as the Pathet Lao, and North Vietnamese troops drove Laotian forces from the Plan de Jar in northern Laos. Both Laos and Cambodia were the targets of intensive carpet bombing during the Vietnam conflict. The U.S. finally withdrew from Vietnam after the northern communists staged a successful invasion of South Vietnam's capital, Saigon, in 1975. Somehow the times after Vietnam seemed like a precursor to today's political insanity, as U.S. armed forces returning home from Southeast Asia were openly scorned and harassed by young people in demonstrations across America. Today's demonstrations are still largely attended by young people, but they are no longer influenced by armed conflicts. Today's conflicts are designed by what used to be called Maoists, or Marxists, or Leninists, slowly but surely promoting socialist ideology in a long-term quest to convert the West to what they used to call communism. I watched a video of Dr. James Lindsay a few days ago addressing a gathering of young members of the Identity and Democracy Foundation at the European Parliament. He described today's attempts to change the character of America using woke ideology. He exclaimed,
"Woke as Marxism evolved to take on the West."
Improvise, adapt, overcome, simplify.